Have a seat, today's tea is bitter, but still sweeter than the price the villain in this story is about to pay. May's red ledger has just turned to a new page. Are you ready to claim justice with Reddit? Revenge Tales. What kind of wife lies to her husband while he's sitting inches away? Me. For a year and a half. 18 months of texting a married man on my couch, at the kitchen counter, while the coffee brewed. In the driveway before I walked back inside, Mark would glance over and I'd smile like nothing was happening. I even renamed him Sarah so my husband wouldn't ask questions. And when Mark did ask, I didn't confess I made him feel crazy. You're paranoid. I watched him shrink. Then I kept typing. And in July, I stopped pretending it was just texts. I crossed a line I can't erase. If you've ever felt lonely in a marriage, or wondered how small secrets turn into life-changing damage, subscribe and stay with me, because I'm going to tell you exactly how it started, the moment Mark first suspected something, and the choice I made in July that broke everything. Let's go back to the beginning. Mark and I weren't strangers. We'd been married 7 years. Not perfect, but solid. The kind of solid that looks boring from the outside and safe from the inside. Dinner most nights. Dishes at the sink. Netflix on the couch with our feet touching. Saturday errands Costco. The gas station. A quick stop at Target because we always needed one thing. We had a home. Routines. History. And yeah, we had issues, stress, distance. Talking past each other, but nothing that screamed, "This is ending." That's why what I did still doesn't even sound like me when I say it out loud. Because I didn't feel like someone having an affair. I felt like a wife who was tired and quietly starving for attention. And then his name showed up again on my screen, like it belonged there. Evan wasn't some random stranger from the internet. I met him years ago briefly, in person. Nothing happened. No secret kiss. No hotel. Just that annoying kind of chemistry you pretend you didn't notice. I remember how he looked at me like I was interesting, like I mattered. After that, it was spaced out. Once in a while, I'd send a harmless message. "Hey, how have you been?" The kind of text you could show your husband without blinking. Evan would reply. Sometimes fast, sometimes hours later, and I'd catch myself checking my phone more than I should. Waiting, refreshing. Feeling that little lift when his name popped up. It wasn't love, it was attention. And it felt safe because he lived thousands of miles away. And he had a wife, too, until about a year and a half ago, when harmless turned into daily. Until that point, Evan was an occasional ping in my life. Easy to ignore, easy to justify. But about a year and a half ago, it stopped being checking in and started being daily. I didn't announce it. I just began reaching for my phone the way some people reach for coffee. A message in the break room while the microwave hummed. A reply at a red light. My thumb moving before my brain caught up. A quick "how's your day?" while I stood at the kitchen counter, pretending to scroll recipes. And every time my screen lit up with his name, I felt that little hit relief. Excitement. Proof that I still mattered to someone. Then I started building my day around it. Not consciously at first. Just little adjustments. Turning my phone face down. Taking it to the bathroom. Keeping it close at night. Mark didn't say anything at first, but he started watching, and I could feel it. It happened on a normal night. We were on the couch. A show on that neither of us was really paying attention to. Mark reached for the remote. Then his eyes flicked to my phone. Not hard. Not angry. Just curious. "Who's that?" he asked. Casual. Like he was asking what I wanted for dinner. My stomach dropped so fast it felt physical. My fingers went cold. For a second, I saw 2 doors in front of me. Put the phone down and tell the truth. Or protect what I'd been feeding. And I didn't stop. I kept my face neutral. I kept my voice light. I kept my thumb moving like nothing was wrong. Because the scariest part wasn't the question. The scariest part was how quickly I knew exactly what to do. I smiled, like a wife with nothing to hide. And I said a name that wasn't his. "It's Sarah," I said. A normal name. A safe name. The kind of name that doesn't invite follow-up questions. Mark didn't lean in. He didn't grab my phone. He just nodded and looked back at the TV, like he trusted me without even trying. And that nod did something to me. It didn't stop me. It taught me. It told me I could keep this going, and still keep my marriage looking normal from the outside. So I kept texting, right there beside him. My phone angled just enough. I'd laugh at something on the screen, then make a comment about the show, so Mark wouldn't notice the timing. My heart was pounding, but my voice stayed steady. That scared me how quickly lying started to sound like small talk. Later that night, when Mark fell asleep, I stared at Evan's name on my screen, and I fixed the problem. I changed Evan's name in my phone to a woman's name. Not dramatically. No shaking hands. No tears. I did it the way you pay a bill. You don't want to think about quick. Practical. Done. Then I changed the little photo to something neutral. Something that wouldn't catch Mark's eye if he glanced over again. After that, texting got easier. Too easy. I stopped flinching every time Mark shifted on the couch. I stopped panicking when he walked into the kitchen. I'd just lower the screen brightness, turn my body slightly, keep the conversation short, and I told myself the lie that makes everything worse. If I'm careful, no one gets hurt. But guilt doesn't disappear. It just goes quiet when it's convenient. Mine went quiet every time Evan replied. And then one day, Mark saw a message preview, just a few words, and I watched his face change. Mark didn't come at me angry. That would have been easier. He came at me hesitant, like he already felt guilty for asking. We were in the kitchen, and he was pretending to look for something in a drawer, not looking at me directly. "Hey." "Who is that?" Again, he said, soft, careful, like he didn't want to fight. And I used that. I hated myself for how fast I used it. I kept my tone light, almost amused, like he was being silly. "Mark, you're being paranoid." I even smiled just enough to make him feel embarrassed for bringing it up. I watched his face shift. Confusion first, then that small collapse in his eyes, like he was trying to decide if he could trust his own instincts. He muttered, "Okay, sorry," and I didn't stop texting. I went right back to my phone like I hadn't just twisted something in him. We still went to therapy the next week. Couples therapy wasn't even about Evan. It was about normal stuff distance. Stress. The way we talked past each other. We'd sit in that calm office. The little tissue box on the table. The soft voice of the therapist asking us to be honest. Every time we walked in, I thought, this is where I tell the truth. Every time, I didn't. Instead, I got better at editing myself. I picked safe complaints. I used careful language. I nodded at the right moments. Mark would open up real, vulnerable. And I'd sit there listening, acting like I was fully in it, while my phone buzzed in my purse like a secret heartbeat. On the drive home, I'd look at Mark and tell myself, I'm still a good wife because I'm here. Then I'd text Evan the second Mark went to the bathroom. And then, in one session, the therapist asked a question so direct my throat went dry. The therapist's voice was calm, almost routine. "Is there anyone else?" My heart didn't just race, it slammed. I felt heat crawl up my neck. I could hear my own breathing, and the faint buzz of the air conditioner like it suddenly mattered. Mark turned and looked at me, not accusing, just open, like he was giving me the chance to be honest without begging for it. I had half a second where I could have saved us. And I didn't. I smiled, small and steady, and said, "No, clean, smooth," like it was nothing, like I was answering whether we'd paid the electric bill. The word hung there. And the scariest part was how easy it felt to say, how normal I made it sound. Mark exhaled, like he'd been holding his breath. The therapist nodded and moved on. Outside that office, I got into my car, closed the door, and my phone lit up. Evan still had me. It wasn't romantic movie stuff. No long love letters, no roses, no dramatic late-night calls. It was constant. Quiet. Easy to hide because it looked like nothing. A quick text while I waited for my coffee. A stupid joke while I stood in line at the pharmacy. A reply while Mark was in the shower. Little check-ins that became the background noise of my day. And then the line moved slowly, almost without me noticing. I started telling Evan things I wasn't saying at home. Not big secrets at first, Just the tiny stuff that adds up. I feel invisible today. I miss being noticed. I don't want to bother Mark with this. Evan would answer like he had time for me, like I was worth the extra sentence. It felt private. It felt like mine. And that's when it turned dangerous. Because I stopped seeing it as wrong and started seeing it as something I deserved. And I told my friend about it, like it was a harmless little thrill. I started telling my friend about Evan. The way people confess something they already know is wrong. Half joking, half testing the line. Little updates. He texted again. He said he missed talking to me. Sometimes I'd send a screenshot, just to prove I wasn't imagining it, just to hear her say, "Girl," like it was messy, but exciting. And there was always that stupid thrill of waiting. I'd set my phone down, act normal, then pick it back up 2 minutes later like it was going to change my life. I'd tell myself it was harmless because it was only words, because he was far away, because I still went home to my husband. I didn't think it mattered. I didn't think anyone would ever read those messages. I didn't think they were evidence. I thought they were just my private outlet, my little secret corner. Then Evan texted one afternoon. He was going to be in my area in July. When Evan said he'd be in my area in July, my first response was the right one. I typed, "I can't." I meant it for about 10 seconds. Then I stared at my calendar like it was going to tell me what kind of person I was. I scrolled through work meetings, errands, a therapy appointment, dinner plans with Mark, all the normal things that made my life look real. And then I started doing something I didn't want to admit I knew how to do. Making room, moving things, rescheduling, creating a gap that didn't exist 5 minutes ago. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't impulsive. It was practical. That's what makes it ugly. I wasn't swept away. I was organized. By the time I put my phone down, the decision was already made. Not out loud. Not in a dramatic moment. Quietly. In the space between appointments. And the next step was simple. I needed a lie about where I was going. I didn't need a complicated story. I needed something boring. Something that fit into our life without making a ripple. "Hey, I'm going to meet up with Jenna for a bit," I said, like it was nothing. I grabbed my keys off the hook by the door. I slipped my phone into my back pocket, like I wasn't already sweating. Mark barely looked up from the couch. He just nodded, the way spouses do when it's a normal Tuesday. And then I did the worst part. The part that still makes me cringe. I asked, "Do you need anything from the store?" Like I was running a simple errand. Like I wasn't about to split my life in half. Mark said no. He asked me to drive safe. I said, "I will." My voice didn't shake. That's what scares me. I walked out, got in the car, and followed the GPS straight to a hotel. And when I pulled into the lot, I didn't get out right away. I parked and turned the engine off. The silence hit first. Then the air conditioning clicked down, and everything felt too still. I sat there with my hands on the steering wheel, like I was waiting for someone to tell me to stop. 1 full minute, I watched people come and go. A couple unloading suitcases, a man pushing a luggage cart, someone walking a dog. Normal life happening around me, while my stomach flipped over and over. I could have left. I could have started the car, driven home, walked back in and said, "Never mind. I'm not going." I even pictured it, Mark on the couch. The TV still on, the easy version of my life still intact. Instead, I checked my phone. "Evan, I'm here." That was it. 3 words, and my body moved before my brain finished arguing. I opened the door, stepped out, and the heat wrapped around me. Then I saw him. Evan walked in like we already knew each other. Like this was just the next step in a conversation we'd been having for months. He smiled, said my name. And I hated how familiar it felt. We did that awkward small talk people do when they're pretending this is normal. How was the drive? You find the place okay? Like we weren't standing on the edge of something ugly. Then he hugged me. Not a quick hello. It lasted a beat too long. Long enough for my brain to finally say, "This is real now." I could feel my heart hammering. And I still didn't step back. I didn't say, "I can't." I didn't mention my husband. I didn't mention his wife. I followed Evan down the hallway. the carpet muffling our footsteps. My phone buzzed once in my pocket, and I ignored it. I told myself I'd stop at the door. We didn't stop. We went upstairs. We had sex. I'm not going to dress it up or turn it into a story that sounds softer than it was. It happened because I let it happen. Because I'd been walking toward it for a year and a half, one text at a time. Afterward, there wasn't some movie moment. There was just quiet. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at my phone like it could tell me who I was now. My hands felt shaky, but my face stayed calm in that way you get when your body is trying to catch up. Evan said something about how we'd be careful, like care was still part of this, like a few rules could make it less wrong. I kept thinking about Mark, his bare feet on our living room rug, the TV on, the normal life I'd left running in the background. My chest felt tight, my mouth was dry, and then I did the sickest, most ordinary thing. I texted my husband. I picked up my phone and typed, "Heading home soon." That was it. Normal, casual, the kind of text you send after grabbing groceries or running into Target for one thing. I even added a little punctuation, like I wasn't sitting in a hotel room with my life cracked open. The moment I hit send, I felt sick to my stomach. Not dramatic sick, real sick. Like my body was rejecting what my mouth and fingers were pretending was fine. My hands didn't shake anymore. That was the problem. I was steady. I was functional. I was two people at once. The wife who comes home and asks about your day, and the woman who just crossed a line and still knows how to sound normal. Evan said something behind me. I barely heard it. All I could think was, Mark is going to read that and trust me. I stood up, fixed my hair in the mirror, and walked out like I'd been anywhere else. Then I drove home. I pulled into our driveway and sat for a second, staring at the garage door like it was going to stop me. It didn't. I walked in, took off my shoes, set my keys down in the usual spot. Mark was in the living room, like he'd been there the whole time, like the world hadn't shifted under my feet. "Hey," I said, "how was your day?" He answered. Just answered. He didn't scan my face. He didn't check my phone. He didn't know, and that should have been a relief. Instead, it made my chest feel tight, because it showed me how easy it was to pretend. We ate dinner, normal plates, normal conversation. I laughed at something he said, and hated myself for how natural the laugh sounded. The world didn't end. Nothing exploded. No sirens. No lightning bolt. And that scared me more than guilt, because it meant I could keep doing this and still look like a good wife. So later that night, I deleted everything. Later that night, when Mark was brushing his teeth, I went into the bathroom and locked the door like I needed privacy to shower. I didn't. I needed privacy to erase. I opened my messages and scrolled up through Evan's thread. Months of hey, miss you, can't stop thinking about you. Little lines that looked harmless one at a time and disgusting as a whole. My thumb hovered for half a second, like hesitation could make me a different person. Then I deleted it. The whole thing. Clean. Gone. I told myself I was protecting my marriage. I told myself I was cutting it off. I told myself Mark didn't need to be hurt by details. But the truth was colder. I was protecting me from consequences, from questions I couldn't answer, from watching Mark's face change while he read my words. When it was gone, I exhaled like I'd just solved a problem, and for a few minutes, I actually believed I didn't realize I'd left something behind. I forgot my messages with my friend. Not because I didn't know they existed, because I didn't see them as dangerous. They weren't flirty. They were just me talking. Little updates, little admissions, little I can't believe I'm doing this. Moments I treated like venting, like it didn't count. But they did count, more than the thread with Evan. In a way, because they had time-stamped honesty. Years of it. Proof that this didn't start in July. Proof that I'd been circling this for a long time. Testing the water. Feeding a crush. Enjoying the chase. Proof I can't rewrite now. No matter how clean my phone looked afterward. I didn't think Mark would ever read them. I didn't think he'd look. I didn't think he'd have a reason. And then one evening, I walked into the living room and saw him holding my phone. He wasn't angry. He was quiet. Too quiet. Mark didn't yell. That's what I remember first, how quiet he was. He was sitting on the edge of the couch, shoulders forward. Like the air in the room had gotten heavy. My phone was in his hand. He didn't wave it around. He didn't throw it. He just held it out like it weighed too much for him. "Read this," he said. Not loud, not even sharp, just flat. I took it, and my throat tightened before I even saw the screen. It was the thread with my friend, the one I didn't think mattered. My words were right there, time-stamped. Casual, excited. Little updates I'd written like a teenager. Screenshots, jokes, the stupid thrill I'd bragged about. I could hear the TV in the background. Some laugh track. And it made everything feel even uglier. I scrolled and felt my face go hot. Not from anger. From being seen. Mark didn't ask why yet. He asked the only question that mattered. How long? He didn't say it like a trap. He said it like a person trying to find the edge of a wound, so he could understand how deep it went. His eyes stayed on my face, steady, almost calm. That calm scared me more than yelling. I could have lied again. I felt the old reflex rise up, smooth it over, make it smaller. Buy time, but there was nowhere left to hide. The messages had dates. The timeline was sitting in his hand. 1.5 years, I said, even as the words left my mouth. They sounded worse than they ever sounded in my head. 18 months. Not a mistake. Not a slip. A pattern. A choice I kept making while we ate dinner. While we watched TV. While we went to therapy. Mark blinked once, like he'd been slapped. His jaw tightened. He nodded slowly, like he was doing math. He never wanted to do. Then he asked, quietly, almost like he already knew the answer. Who the hell is Sarah? Mark's voice got quieter, but it wasn't calm. It was controlled, like he was holding himself together with both hands. So when you told me it was Sarah, he said, you were texting him beside me. I opened my mouth and nothing came out. My throat felt tight, like my body was trying to stop me from making it worse. I just nodded, once, small. He stared at me for a second like he didn't recognize me. Then his face went blank. Not angry blank, not shocked blank. More like something shut off to protect him. And when I asked, he said, you told me I was paranoid. I nodded again. My eyes were burning. I wanted to reach for him. And I didn't move. I could feel how dangerous my touch would be in that moment. Like it would insult him. He looked down at the phone, then back up at me. I need you to leave, he said, and that's when the room finally felt real. He didn't scream it. He didn't throw anything. He just repeated it, steady. Lauren, I need you to leave. I walked down the hallway like I was on autopilot. The house felt familiar and wrong at the same time. I pulled a duffel bag out of the closet and unzipped it. The sound was loud in the quiet zip. Zip, like it was announcing what was happening. I packed the way you pack, when your brain can't handle feelings yet. T-shirts, jeans, underwear, toothbrush, deodorant, face wash, my laptop charger, because I couldn't imagine not needing it. Even though I couldn't imagine anything, Mark stayed in the living room. I could hear the TV still on. Some commercial playing, normal voices selling something pointless. I carried the bag past him. He didn't look up. At the door, I stopped like I expected him to say something. He didn't. I walked out. I got in my car, and we started living apart. Without ever calling it that. I stayed with my sister the first few nights, then a cheap extended stay place off the highway, the kind with thin walls and a lobby that smells like coffee that's been sitting too long. I kept telling myself it was temporary. A pause. Space. Anything but what it really was. Mark and I lived apart, but we didn't call it separation. We didn't talk lawyers. We didn't say divorce. We just floated in this awful in-between. Suspended. Every time my phone buzzed, my chest tightened. If it was Mark, I'd stare at the screen before opening it, trying to guess if it was logistics or goodbye. Sometimes it was simple. Mail came. Can you send the account password? Sometimes it was nothing at all. Days of silence that felt louder than shouting. I kept replaying the night he told me to leave. Like if I watched it enough, I'd find a different ending. And then Evan texted me, like he still had a place in my life. That was the moment I finally did the one thing I should have done a long time ago. I went no contact with Evan the way you rip off a bandage you should have removed months ago. Blocked his number, blocked him on every app, deleted his email thread. I didn't write a long goodbye. I didn't give him closure. I just shut the door. Then I tried to become the kind of person Mark could believe again fast. I started individual therapy. I handed Mark my phone like it was a receipt. You can look whenever you want. I gave him passwords, email, social media, location sharing, all the things people say you're supposed to do after you destroy trust. But doing everything right didn't bring him back. It didn't erase 18 months. It didn't undo the way I made him doubt himself. When we met to talk at a coffee shop, neutral ground. Mark looked tired in a way I'd never seen. Not angry tired, broken tired. And I realized something awful. Transparency isn't the same as safety. He could have my phone, but he couldn't get his peace back at that coffee shop. Mark didn't look like a man who'd been cheated on. He looked like someone who'd spent months being told his instincts were wrong. Like someone who'd started doubting his own memory. He kept his hands wrapped around his cup, not drinking it, just holding on like it was the only solid thing in front of him. And I realized the affair wasn't the deepest cut. The deepest cut was what I did when he got close to the truth. I didn't just lie. I made him feel unreasonable. I made him feel embarrassing. I trained him to back down. That was me. Not Evan. Me. When I think about it now, it's not the hotel that makes my stomach turn. It's Mark on that couch, asking a simple question, and me answering with a smile that said, "You can't trust yourself." I rewired his reality. I made our home a place where he couldn't rely on his own eyes. And the worst part is, I still wanted him to stay. I wanted Mark to stay. And I also knew he might never feel safe with me again. Those two truths sat in my chest at the same time, heavy and impossible to separate. I'd show him my phone, my emails, my location. Anything he asked for, like access, could replace trust. But 1.5 years is a long time to lie. 18 months of choosing secrecy over the person who slept next to me. 18 months of letting him think he was paranoid. That doesn't disappear. Because I'm sorry now. Sometimes I replay the exact moment it tipped. Mark on the couch, the casual question, my stomach dropping, and then my fingers typing the cleanest lie I've ever told. It's Sarah. That sentence feels like the real beginning of the end. Not July. Not the hotel. That one line because it was the moment I decided I could hurt him and still keep my life. So what do you do after this? Do you fight for a marriage you poisoned? Or do you let it die because the truth finally showed up? Here's what I learned the hard way. Affairs don't start with sex. They start with a secret you can still explain away. A text you call harmless, a name you don't mention. Then it becomes routine, something you do while the coffee brews, while your spouse is in the shower, while real life is happening right next to you. And the danger isn't just the betrayal. It's how lying starts to feel normal. The most damaging part isn't always the physical line. It's the mental one, when you make the person you love doubt their own instincts. When you say you're paranoid and watch them shrink. That kind of harm doesn't heal with passwords and transparency. It heals with accountability, time, and the willingness to face the full truth without minimizing it. If you feel lonely, talk before you escape. If you feel tempted, set boundaries before you test them. And if you've been betrayed, remember, your gut isn't crazy. It's information. All right. Let May be painfully clear. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a pattern. And it showed up fast. A stranger asked you something stupid at a bar, you said no. And Mark turned you from wife to suspect. That's red flag number 1, suspicion. Without proof. Then he started the classic toxic combo, moving the goalpost, demanding the truth after you already gave it, and treating your calm as evidence. That's not concern. That's control wearing a suit. And when someone blocks the exit, when your "I need air" becomes "Why are you running?" That's not love. That's a power test. The moment he rewrote the story, you pushed me, you escalated. That's gaslighting 1. 01. Not loud, not messy, just cold. Tidy cruelty. So here's your takeaway straight up: your no is a full sentence. You don't audition for basic respect. You don't negotiate reality with someone who benefits from you doubting yourself. If you're hearing this and your stomach drops, trust that. Red flags don't get greener with time. To the villain of this story, karma doesn't need your permission. It just keeps receipts. And to you, sweetheart, this debt may clears it. But remember, these eyes are always watching. Don't let your name end up on May's blacklist next episode. Hit subscribe, because around here, justice doesn't show up late. It shows up ready. A final note from the library. While these stories find their roots in the halls of Reddit, they are artistically reimagined to speak to the heart. Any likeness to reality is mere coincidence. The emotions, however, are very real. Walk with empathy and let justice lead the way. Thank you for watching.